on the day of hopefully dismissal for this guy, we get to bring him home finally. We were thinking about how we got to this point, and in September 1st was when we got the news that Lauren was probably going to give birth. And I went in for a morning workout with the team, and we had a countertop issue. Our sink was like, we had our countertops installed and they looked really great. Then our sink was pulling away, like underneath, we had an undermounted sink, and it was pulling off of the countertop. So we called the installer. They were meeting me that morning. It was a Thursday morning. They were meeting me. So I went from morning workout, drove home. Lauren had been having some issues. She thought she was leaking fluid, and she had a Friday doctor's appointment, but she decided to ask if she could come in Thursday instead, just to get that checked out. And I was at home. I left my phone in my car. I just went in and met with the installer. I'm talking. I come out and I take the dog out, take Bella out, get my phone out of my car, and I see I have 6 missed calls from Lauren. And then as I'm checking the voicemail from her, my mom calls, and she has this really like calm voice that pretty much to tell you nothing's wrong, but it really says something's wrong, so I'm thinking, okay, what's the problem? And she's like, Maddie, everything is okay, Lauren's doing fine, she's in the hospital, you're gonna have a baby. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to McGee. So I hung up, I checked my voicemail from Lauren, or no, I think I just called Lauren right away. She's in tears, she's crying, she's frantic, and she's by herself at McGee Hospital. And so I'm driving in there to get there as quick as I can. As soon as I get there, I see her. We really don't know what's going on at this point. We know that she's leaking amniotic fluid, and that's basically it. She's having no signs of labor at this point, and so we're just waiting. And then the doctors, they tell us that with the leaking amniotic fluid, that means the membrane is ruptured, and they are worried about infection. So he was 32 weeks old at that point. They wanted to get him to 34 weeks. So September 12th, they were going to induce labor. After that, they felt the risk of infection was too high and they'd rather get him out. So we thought that...
Knock at the door. Come in.
All right, well, I don't remember where I was. The nurse came in and interrupted. But anyways, they were going to induce labor September 12th. We basically thought Lauren's going to be in the hospital. She wasn't allowed to leave until she gave birth. And they told us the latest she was going to go was September 12th. So
which was September 1st.
We figured she's going to be in the hospital essentially 2 weeks. We're going to get comfortable here at McGee in this room, and everything's going to right away we're faced with making choices. They wanted to take this needle and put it in Lauren's stomach and check the fluid, make sure there's no infection. I don't know. There was different things we wanted to do. We decided not to do that, and it worked out for us. But things go on that night. They wanted to make sure, again, another way to check for infection was to put a catheter in Lauren and just make sure everything was going well that way. And when they did that, that was one of the most uncomfortable parts for Lauren, was going through that catheter. She had it all night. Staying there at night was kind of rough. Just she had to do that, and then their nurses coming in and pushing on her stomach every, a few hours, and couldn't really get much sleep. And that night was very, very uncomfortable for her. And I don't know if it's true or not, but we think that maybe spurred the labor. I mean, they took that catheter out. She felt very relieved. She couldn't eat or drink anything, really. She was just sick, and they took that catheter out. In the morning, they came in, checked her. She was dilated 2 centimeters. That's Friday morning now, and they thought, well, she's going to give birth, so we're going to take the catheter out. Infection doesn't matter anymore. We're just going to... Or preeclampsia is actually why they had the catheter in. I'm sorry, preeclampsia. She was preeclamptic, which we don't know what that means, but she had high blood pressure, and they were making sure that she was going to be healthy, so that's why they had the catheter in. And after she went into labor, at that point it almost didn't matter. They knew she was going to give birth, so they're just going to go with it. So they took the catheter out, and then the contraction stopped. Her diet, she stayed at 2 centimeters dilated, and then we're back on, okay, September 12th. That was probably 7 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning. And then throughout the day, we're just hanging out again. Of course, our family's there. My mom and Lauren's parents both came up right away. As soon as the whole situation, they dropped everything and came to Pittsburgh, which was great. And then about 4 o'clock that Friday afternoon, she started feeling more contractions. I'm watching the monitor, and the monitor is going like this, and and we're thinking, okay, well maybe something's happening. So a doctor comes in and checks, and she's 7 centimeters dilated. So we're having a kid at that point. She's going to give birth to Calvin, and 4:55, basically an hour later, she gave birth. And then the whole plan was to have an epidural and to do this and that. And really, with the way it came so quick, there was no epidural. There was 20 people in the delivery room. I don't know how many people, but it seemed like everybody right away, because they had to have the pediatric people involved, ready to take him away and check him as soon as it happened. So Lauren did a great job. She was going through birth, and she's pushing. I'm just trying to tell her what the people were saying. They kept saying one more, and it was not one more. It was like 4 more.
Thanks.
And they kept saying it was coming, it wasn't coming. But I could see his head. I could see it coming out, and my plan was not to, I was just going to be helping her with it. But anyways, I was right involved. It was, right there, and I saw his little head come out. It was like that big, and I was like, holy cow, he's coming out, And then all of a sudden, like 2 or 3 pushes later, this head came out. It wasn't this big. It was this big. It was crazy. It came coming out, looked up, and it was great. We were so happy. They immediately took him over and put him on the scale and weighed him, and he was 5 pounds 4 ounces, and everything's going well.
He cried.
We're extremely excited, and yeah, he cried right away. He was breathing. Things are looking good. That was a big concern with him being 8 weeks early. Was he going to be able to breathe? And he was. So that was great. The doctor we had looked like a 16-year-old. I mean, she was like really young. This Indian lady we had, but she did a great job and helped us. And immediately, I noticed there was his skin. It didn't look quite right. It looked like it was cracking. It looked kind of like I thought it looked like an overcooked turkey, and that's kind of what I said to the nurses. I'm like, oh no, it's part of being premature. His skin's not developed. And I said, okay, I don't know any better. So we're holding him. We're making fun of him kind of because he's got a funky looking. His mouth, it was kind of stuck in an O position, and yeah, we're taking pictures with the doctors and stuff, having a good time. They take him away. They said they'll be back in 15-20 minutes, and they just need to do the routine, kind of check everything's going well. And they come back, I don't know, 15-20 minutes later, they come back, and the head kind of doctor with the pediatrics, McGee, came up, and there was 3 of them. They came up, and we could tell right away there was something wrong. Just the look on their face, they're very serious, and they looked at us and they told us he had, I can't pronounce it, but it's EB.
Epidermis bullosa.
Bullosa, and of course Lauren, she's asking all these questions and trying to get to the bottom of it, and she was really calm, and I was, we're just trying to see what's going on. So they say he has EB, and Lauren goes, well, are they going to have it for life? Is it something that he'll grow out of? And she said that he'll have it for life. And she said, does it affect longevity? And we both don't really remember exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of he probably won't make it, or a lot of times they don't survive. So at that moment we were just like, how could this be happening? And we went from having one of the happiest moments of our life to like extremely intense and not knowing how to deal with it. And so Lauren's stuck. She's still in the bed. I mean, she's, they're taking care of her, making sure she's good. She's not allowed to walk yet. They want her laying down. So I went out to like the family waiting lounge and to talk to Lauren's parents. And Mark and Karen were joking around. Everybody's happy, and they said a joke to me, and I sort of was like, "There's a problem," and they kept talking. They didn't hear me. I was like, "There's a problem with Calvin," and like everybody got real serious, and I had to explain to them. And that's kind of when I broke down, and I was getting emotional at that point. Just saying like he'll have it for life, and he might not make it. It's just hard to say. That's your first child. That's your son. Someone you've been anticipating for a long time now, and you want to do everything you can for him. And so, but the only thing we could do was wait and see. And everybody was praying for us. Like my mom, the people at her work were praying for. They didn't know what to pray for, but they're like, you know what? I know what I'm going to pray for. It's a misdiagnosis. Is what they prayed for. And it turned out we couldn't. It was Labor Day weekend. The pediatric derm was in Cleveland. He does Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Well, he's in Cleveland, and so we're calling everybody. Mark gets a hold of Jasmine, I think. Jasmine's dad knows somebody, and Lauren's brother Matt knows somebody, and they're calling around, and they get a hold of somebody who knows the pediatric derm and talks to him and convinces him to come to Pittsburgh that night. And so he drives from Cleveland right away, and we wait about 6 hours, from about 5 when he was born till 11 at night. He finally gets there, and he's like this jolly guy who I'm sure we'll be getting to know a lot better as we go on. But he comes in and tells us, oh, he's fine, no big deal. He's got something else. It's not EB. He's gonna be fine. And so we're all just so relieved and so happy. And you know, what he had was it's called a colloidal membrane, and he's a colloidin baby. And basically, he had a really tight outer shell of skin. It was thick, and the reason why they were nervous is right away he would bend his hands and his knees and ankles, and it looked like he took a razor blade and cut all of his joints, and they were bleeding, and they thought that was going to blister up and he was going to get infected and maybe not make it. So that was the concern. But after that point, we just kept Vaseline on him every 2 or 3 hours and wrapped his joints with Vaseline gauze. And you know, eventually we spent 10 days in McGee at the NICU, and they were great. The care there was awesome. But 10 days there, we just kept greasing him up, and his shell kept peeling. And then after, really, at 10 days, they told us about this place, the Mario Lemieux Children's Home. We didn't know anything about it. Lauren went over and toured it with her dad and liked it, and so came back, and he ended up taking his first car ride. He got put in an ambulance, loaded him up, and shipped him off to the Children's Home. We got here, and it's just been nice.
Hey.
Hey. As you can see, we get constant care here. A little too much maybe, but he took his first ambulance ride. We got here, and they were able to do that because he was stable. Even though he was premature, he was breathing very well. At the time, he wasn't, I don't think he was eating at all yet. I think he was just all feeding tube. But he was breathing well. His temperature was great. They took him out of the humidifier, and so they moved him here, which is a less intensive place, and somewhere where Lauren and I could be more comfortable with him, take him out of his crib, and there's a kitchen downstairs, and more comfortable here. So it's been good. And then since we brought him here, he started eating on his own a little bit more each day, and now he's up to eating. You know, I'd say for the past 5 days he's been eating his full feeding every time, and he's been off the feeding tube for maybe a week now, and things are going well. He's eating more and more. He's gaining weight. He's getting some chubby cheeks. We do tummy time now, where we put him on his stomach and he can lift his head up and lift his legs and move around a little bit. So we got to this point now. I guess maybe 3 days ago they thought maybe we could bring him home this weekend. Friday might be the day. In our mind, we were still, you know, thinking the day was far away. We didn't want to prepare ourselves, get ourselves excited. But 3 days ago they told us that if he continued, didn't have any more breathing episodes, he was breathing good and he was still eating everything, they didn't see why we couldn't take him home. And he's done better and better, and now it's Friday, and it's September 30th, last day of September. We're going to take him home. So we're excited about that and very thankful that the way things ended up the way they did. So it's been really, really good, and we've been changed right away from the beginning of it. Our lives changed the minute, probably when she was pregnant, but the minute we gave birth, or she gave birth and he came out, I think we'll never be the same. It was changed for the better, and we're just so happy to have our little bundle of joy here, and he's growing big and strong and healthy, and things are going great.